morning. Bonjour. With all the great quality content being created, we are for sure in a golden age of TV. But it's a golden age where the goalposts are constantly changing. But one thing is for sure, creators are more than ever key and to be revered. And that's why today I'm particularly glad that with World Screen we'll be celebrating some of today's top creators. And we're so pleased to have with us Lorenzo Mieli, CEO of FremantleMedia Italia, creator of the acclaimed series The Young Pope, and now my brilliant friend. Eric Newman, the showrunner and executive producer of Narcos, and Álex Pina, co-creator of Money Heist, Casa de Papel. His latest series, The Pier, will be presented in the world premiere screening tonight, right here. And now, Anna Karogati, Group Editorial Director at World Screen, will be back on stage to lead a conversation with this illustrious panel. And following the discussion, each of our guests will be awarded with the World Screen Trendsetter Award in recognition for their outstanding contribution to this international television industry. And so now, please welcome on stage Lorenzo, Eric, Álex, and Anna. A warm welcome.
It's not afternoon. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. We have an extraordinary panel. Lorenzo, Eric, Álex, and also joining us on stage is Carlos Ucar, who is going to be helping Álex with the translations. And this panel, I'm particularly excited about this. Being a dual, bicultural person myself, it's lovely to see that an idea can truly come from anywhere in the world. And that's what we want to, in part, what we want to celebrate today. So, Lorenzo, how did you start in television? Media was kind of in your family already. What took you to the fiction side of it?
Does it work?
Yes.
I'll try to make it very short. I used to watch 8 hours of television a day when I was a kid. That's how I started. So in a day I could have watched TV shows, TV series, movies, crap TV, high quality movies. That's how I felt in love with the job. Then I thought I was going to be a director and writer, and I soon found out that I was a very bad writer and director. But there was something that I was missing that was still in me, and then I realized that being a creative producer means to have ideas and attract to the project the best directors and writers. So that's how I ended up working in television.
Right. Eric, you actually started on the film side. What drew you to television?
Failure, maybe. I think, in all seriousness, a little bit of exhaustion from sort of the changes in the movie business that have gone on over the last 20 years. But I think in the case of Narcos, and that being sort of my second real foray into television, it was the appeal that the format had to be able to tell a more complete story over a period of hours rather than sort of, the 2.5 hour movie standard. It was always sort of appealing to me as a viewer, television, but I did not think that I would have ended up a showrunner and a television writer. I had plans, that would have kept me in movies forever, and I still do movies occasionally, but that business changed so dramatically.
Right.
And was so polarized into big tentpole movies and genre movies. And the movies that I love, and I think the movies that a lot of us love, weren't getting made anymore and aren't getting made anymore. And that quality drama lives on television now. And so for that reason, I was very drawn to it.
Exactly. And Álex, how did you start your career in television?
Bueno, realmente yo siempre había querido ganarme la vida escribiendo, así que lo más fácil que encontré era el periodismo, y de ahí pasé a hacer todo tipo de cosas en televisión, talk shows, concursos, hasta que, bueno, finalmente llegué a ficción y ahí tuve que aprenderlo todo de nuevo.
Well, he began as a journalist because he wanted always to write something, scripts, something fiction. And so he went through different stages in the beginning as a screenwriter. First, he worked in talk shows. Later on, in some Spanish comedy programs, like similar to Saturday Night Live. And then eventually he ended up writing fiction. And then and there, he needed to learn everything from scratch.
Excellent. Lorenzo, I have read that you like to surround yourself with people who even are not in the television business when you're brainstorming or even working on a project. And you also come across some extraordinary talent. So tell us how you began your collaboration with Oscar-winning director Paolo Sorrentino.
Yeah, I mean, I think that these two questions are related because when I was already working in television and doing TV series, and then I've always been in love with Paolo's work in movies. And I thought that he was the farthest artist that I could think about doing television, because the way he tells stories and depicts his world was really weird, and thinking about him doing television was even weirder. So that's why I called him, because I like to bring things that are really different in different mediums. So I thought Paolo could be an incredible storyteller in long storytelling television. And so I just went and asked him, do you want to do television? And he said, I never watched a TV show, maybe one. And I said, good, that's the reason why you should do it. And that's how it happened. And at the same time, I had an idea originally, which was different, because in Italy we had a character, a real character, lived for real, called Padre Pio. It's basically a saint and someone who everybody knows, and has been a topic, mainstream character for mainstream television for both Rai and Mediaset. So I thought, in this new world, what if Paolo Sorrentino approach a character like that and do a totally different show on a character like this? So I told him, you want to do something like that? He said, well, that's really interesting. Then he thought about it, and he came back and said, no, I think a saint is too little for me. I want to do the Pope. And so that's how the story began.
Wow. Eric, how did Narcos come about?
Well, it started life as a film that I was developing. I had heard a story in 1996, which is scary to think that I was actually working in 1996, but I was. And I heard a story about the drug war and about the efforts to take out Pablo Escobar and dismantle the Cali cartel. And at the time, it was thought of as a success. And as I dug a little deeper into it and was confronted by the complexities of this failing endeavor, I was very drawn to it, and I began, developing it as a film. And I think it got caught up in that era where, as things were moving away from drama and the sort of rise of the tentpoles, it just became increasingly difficult to get someone to a studio to embrace it. And I held on to it until I got into business with Netflix and Gaumont. And when Netflix announced they were launching into Latin America, and they asked me if I had something that might work, I said, well, yes, I do, but it has to be in Spanish, at least partially. It has to be done a very certain way. We have to shoot it in Colombia. And I knew very little about television at the time, and that seemed to be okay with them. And they said, go and do it. And I think it took me about 19 years between the idea and actually shooting. So.
Well, because also there was a ton of research that went into that as well.
A tremendous amount of research, but I was always kind of into drugs, not into drugs, but kind of,
okay,
whatever.
Eric, that's a headline now,
so
I'm sorry. It was always into drugs.
This is France, I can say that. No, but I was always interested in the politics of it, and our relationship with our neighbors to the south, and so I had done a fair amount of research by the time that we started, but I think the 19 years served me well.
Right. Álex, heists have been the subject of many movies. I mean, the whole Ocean 11, 12, 13 is just one of them. But most of these movies have shown the entire planning of the heist, and then the film culminates with the heist itself. Casa de Papel is quite the opposite. From the very beginning, you see the heist, and the rest of the series, through flashbacks, we see the planning and the diabolical thinking of El Profesor and the other people who carry it out. Tell us how that dual storyline came about.
Bueno, realmente lo que nosotros queríamos es entrar cuanto antes al atraco porque realmente no teníamos presupuesto para competir con las grandes películas de acción o con las grandes series de acción, ¿no? Realmente nuestro fuerte eran los personajes y cuanto antes entráramos y empezaran a trabajar dentro del secuestro, dentro del atraco, iba a ser mejor y tardamos 13 minutos realmente en entrar. Luego contamos todo el resto en flashback y...
Yes, we wanted to deal with heist as soon as possible. We didn't have money, we couldn't compete with the big productions. So we needed an emotional tilted, and above all, we needed to develop a character. And the characters was a concept, the character concept that was so stimulating. So we planned to break the series into 2 different times. This way, it offered us rhythm, freedom, and versatility. We could describe claustrophobic moments, change the ambience, almost the genre, and step away from immediate events and enjoy different kind of scenes, more emotional, casual, or even comical.
Right. I was unfair to you, Carlos. I'm sorry. You are not only helping Álex today. Carlos also translated La Casa de Papel into English for Netflix, and also we'll talk about the Pier in a minute. You also translated the Pier, correct? Okay. All right. I want to... And by the way, the dubbing into English of La Casa de Papel was extraordinary. I don't know if any of that credit goes to you or whoever it goes to, but it was really, really well done. Lorenzo, when viewers get enamored with a show, we kind of get lost in it, right? There's a suspension of disbelief and we love it, but there's so much preparation that goes into making these shows. Did you have consultants for the workings of the Vatican? I mean, the young Pope shows such amazing dynamics behind the scenes.
Yes, obviously we had for the young Pope, and we have had it also for the new Pope, which we're going to shoot in a couple of weeks. We're going to start shooting in a couple of weeks. What's strange and incredible is that, first of all, it was anonymous consultancy. So you won't see anyone credited as consultants, but we had a lot. And what Paolo does, really, I've seen him working, he studies a lot, but then he creates everything from scratch. So you see what you've got through consultancy in lines, but you don't really, he recreated something. So yes, it's real, meaning there is an authenticity in the research, but it's purely creative in the result.
And you were not shooting in the Vatican. Where did you?
No, we were not, but not because of the show, of the nature of the show, because we found out that it's forbidden to shoot fictional stuff inside the Vatican. So it's not possible, and but we recreated a lot of the part in theaters, and then in some different places in Rome.
The gardens, I imagine.
The gardens, the villas, and things. So each part of the Vatican was a part of Rome, or a specific angle of Rome.
Eric, we talked about the research. You also had Drug Enforcement Agency agents consulting for you. Tell us about that. How willing were they to help?
You know, drug enforcement agents are cops, and I have not met one who doesn't believe strongly that all drugs are the devil, and that the only way to defeat the scourge of drugs is through law enforcement. I strongly disagree with that, and so part of this job has been spending a lot of time with people with very different points of view on all sides. You know, I like to think that, you know, I have journalists, politicians, cops, occasionally traffickers, and they're all sort of full of shit, you know, when you get their version of what's wrong, why it happened, who's at fault. The DEA is invaluable as a source for us, certainly, but their version of events is always, well, then we got this guy, and then we got this guy, and then we arrested that guy, and they tend not to focus on the fact that the moment that guy goes down, another guy takes his place, and that it's almost like a hydra. You cut off a head and 3 heads pop up. We couldn't do the show or certainly reach the level of authenticity that's so important to our audience without them, but they definitely have a very, very clear black and white view of the issue. And I think that the show works for people who have a very clear black and white version of a take on it, but I think it also works for people like myself who approach it with a bit more complexity, because it is very complex.
Absolutely. Álex, did you have consultants to help you with the intricacies of planning that heist? Because either you have a diabolical mind or did you have outside consultants?
Bueno, realmente contamos con la labor de un inspector de policía con todas las tramas de La Casa de Papel, que se ponía realmente muy nervioso porque era un delirio todo lo que intentábamos hacer desde el punto de vista policial, pero realmente nos ayudó muchísimo a encauzarlo todo y tuvimos mucha documentación de negociaciones en diferentes atracos, ¿no? Y poco a poco fuimos encaminándolo, bueno, de una forma que realmente tuviera una credibilidad policial.
Yes, we did. We consulted a police inspector. And he was really surprised about all the turns and twists that we tried to put into the heist. But we channeled all that craziness, and we get the plots. We also tried to find new sideways for the negotiation between the inspector and the professor. And so we tried all these exchanges to be surprising and the story twists to be totally unexpected.
Right. So one of the hallmarks of our golden age of television is complex characters, and all of your shows highlight those very well. Lorenzo, what reaction did you have, if any, to the depiction of people in the Vatican as not always very morally adroit people?
Silence.
Really?
Yes. Really? Which means it's not an attack. It's the depiction of reality, or done in a grotesque and baroque way, but it's reality, and I don't think that anyone, not a Catholic, not in the Vatican, have seen that show as everybody was expecting a show about the dark side of the Vatican, and it was not. Right. So it was creation of complex characters. So a guy that is elected pope, and the end of the first episodes tells the audience he doesn't believe in God. That's the most complexity you can find in a character. But they were all complex as in their inside, a lot more than in the outside. So with dark politics or
absolutely. And the Pope himself was so damaged as a child that then you understand.
Exactly. I mean, we were happy because after 1 year of the show, after the show has been aired, there was an article on a newspaper that nobody reads, but it's very important because it's the official newspaper of the Vatican. It was 2 pages that basically said it's one of the most interesting pieces about religion that has been done in the past decades. So I think that has been the way through which they've seen the show, Catholics and Vatican.
Eric, did the DEA officials have a problem with showing the human side of the drug traffickers?
It's a complicated question. I think, where we have received some criticism for glamorizing or glorifying these people, I think what people are reacting to is the fact that we humanize them. I think that law enforcement, particularly American law enforcement, although I think looking at the world today, that sort of single-mindedness is everywhere, closed-mindedness. they tend to see the world as, you know, good guys and bad guys. I don't. I see the world as bad guys and very bad guys, probably. And I think the mistake that people make is to deprive someone, even of the greatest villain, of their humanity. Monsters do not spring forth from the womb. They're created, and they're created by ideology and rationale. And, you know, if you're a, you know, narco trafficker, you don't think you're a bad guy. You think that this situation exists where I can make a lot of money in a country where I could never make that kind of money, you know, by playing by the rules. The United States is the largest market for illegal drugs in the world by far, and you could probably justify, as many of them do, that if the cocoa leaf grew in Virginia, cocaine would be legal, or at least variations of it would be legal.
Or the drug companies would have.
Yeah, I mean, you know, more people have, it's a staggering number, but 200,000 people, Americans, have died from opioid poisoning in the last, you know, 18 months. I mean, that's 4 times as many Americans as were killed in Vietnam. And that's a drug that somehow, because it's got a label on it, it's somehow less dangerous. So I think that we do sometimes get that, you know, you're glorifying these guys. Their ending is always incredibly unhappy, certainly. You know, there is some form of justice. But I think the criticism that we humanize them, I take as a compliment. Really, one of the deepest compliments you can pay is that you get inside the head of someone who's so easily dismissed as a monster and a criminal.
And you see that he is a human after all.
We all are, even the worst of us.
Yes, absolutely. Álex, the characters in La Casa de Papel are complex, often both good and bad at the same time. Tell us about why you choose to play with viewers' empathy towards the characters. I mean, someone like Berlin, I hope you've all seen the series. In one moment you're loving him, and the next moment he is appalling. But all of them have that characteristic. Talk about these complex characters.
Bueno, yo creo que el espectador hoy dedica tantas horas a ver ficción que se ha convertido realmente en un experto, entonces demanda cada vez personajes mucho más complejos y que le sorprendan, ¿no? En el caso de Berlín era el personaje narcisista, cruel, misógino, con una tremenda carga peyorativa, y lo fuimos transformando porque hoy en día el espectador realmente quiere que le sorprendan con la hoja de ruta que tiene prevista para un personaje y realmente cambiar las sensaciones con los personajes hace que sea mucho más estimulante para el espectador y más sorprendente.
Yes, the audience right now spends many hours watching fiction. And so we thought that changing the audience wants more complex characters. So we thought that Berlin, in the beginning he's very derogatory, we hate him, but suddenly we changed that and we create a highly empathic character. And that makes that the audience feels more, it finds the whole thing more stimulating. And so they try to balance both aspects of the whole thing. They enjoy writing that, they think it's more, the visual experience is at the same time more rewarding for the audience.
Can I just, because we were talking back there about what's so magic about this medium, the ability to take a character like Berlin, for example, I don't know how many of you have seen, I hope all of you have seen the show, a character that you want to die in as early as you get to know him in the show, and by the end you pray that he doesn't. It's really, it can't be done in movies. In 2.5 hours, and I'm saying 2.5 hours, that's a long movie. You cannot take a character who, for example, blows up an airplane and think anything about him other than he's a bad guy and he needs to die. And in the 10-hour format or more, you can take, you know, the first episode of Game of Thrones, Jaime Lannister throws a child out a window. And by the end of season 3, you love him. And that is an incredible accomplishment. And I don't think you can do that anywhere but in this medium.
Right. So, Lorenzo, You most recently have worked on My Brilliant Friend, which is based on the Elena Ferrante Neapolitan novels. What prompted the decision to shoot in Neapolitan, and how did that enhance on one side and perhaps complicate the casting process?
Well, the decision was necessary, just like that, because I mean the authenticity. Honestly, Narcos opened a path for all of us. I think it really changed the rule for the first time. No, it's true. We were discussing this before, and because it showed that, first of all, it showed that authenticity is really a real element of contemporary storytelling, especially in television. And the second reason why is because, so in this case, I mean, the story is set in Naples, and the whole project, so the 4 books are so authentic because of who wrote them and why they were written, and the kind of story that was told, that we could have never thought about, you know, putting American actresses playing Italian girls in the 50s in a poor neighborhood of Naples. Having said this, it obviously, yes, casting was pretty much complicated because we needed to find authentic Neapolitans. All of them, most of them were non-professionals because we casted 36 kids from 8 to 18, 20, and they needed to speak real Neapolitan, so real that we don't understand it either. So when I watch the show, I don't understand 70% of it, so we're going to have subtitles. So that's a step forward after Narcos. It's going to be subtitled also in Italy. And so it's a task, and I think it's an opportunity. If I hope the show performs and it's well received and it's going to be loved. But in a way, to have a show in Italian, in Neapolitan, on prime time on a American network, it could change.
Yes.
In a way that it's already changed by shows like Narcos or La Casa del Papel, which have been, I've seen it in Italian, honestly, but you know, in a way that international shows are seen nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, we have a clip of My Brilliant Friend. Let's take a look at the clip.
Questo non può continuare a studiare.
Tanti l'esame, lo faccio stesso.
E vostra figlia è brava così in tutte le altre materie. Parlate con vostro marito, fatelo ragionare.
Perché avesse a studiare sordo che è pure femmina.
Perché c'è proprio lui. A parlare con me, il fratello riceve questo.
Rino, ma basta.
Ma capite che...
Basta! Questa cosa da scolamento non la voglio sentire più.
Elena! Scina aiutano poco. Ma vengo. Crei, non te ne importa. Quello che fai tu o faccio io?
Fu in quell'occasione che mi convinsi che niente potesse fermarla e che anzi ogni sua disobbedienza aveva sbocchi che per la meraviglia toglievano il fiato.
Mamma.
Sono proprio contenta di vederti, Leno. Anche io.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Looking forward to that.
Can I say something?
Of course.
One small thing. I think that My Brilliant Friend is going to be, I'm sitting here with the guy who did Narcos and La Casa del Papel, so in the first season of, in the whole first season of My Brilliant Friend, there are, I think, 2 twists. One is a pair of shoes, and one is a doll. Right. So, I think it's a totally different way of looking at long storytelling. So there is no, like, every scene you jump on a chair. It's all about the point of view, the complexity of the point of view of these female characters. So it's a task, it's a risk, but at the same time, I think it could open up to a new way of considering long storytelling for art movies or art TV shows.
Absolutely. Álex, you have such a variety of characters, both male and female. Did they all spring from the imagination, or were some based on people you know?
Bueno, realmente no nos basamos en ninguna persona real para trabajar en el diseño de los personajes, pero la realidad es que todo el mundo conoce a alguien narcisista como Berlín, a alguien impulsivo como Tokio, o a alguien tremendamente humano como Moscú, ¿no? Y yo creo que eso es lo realmente importante.
Yes, we are not working on real people in a way, but we do all know people like Tokyo, impulsive as herself, or narcissist like Berlin, or a compassionate man like Moscow. So we all know that type of people.
Right, right. Eric, was Narcos always supposed to run multiple seasons?
It was always the plan to follow the flow of cocaine, and it very much moved from Colombia to Mexico, which is now the sort of ground zero of the cocaine trade. And so it was always the plan.
And we're going to show a clip in a second about season 4, but what can you tell us about season 4?
Season 4 is about, we moved to Mexico, and it's the story of the formation of the Guadalajara cartel, which was sort of the first super cartel in Mexico, and it was a variety of traffickers who were unified under one trafficker, a man named Felix Gallardo, who's played by Diego Luna in the show, and he rather ingeniously built an empire, and of course he very quickly, as ambitious, power-hungry people do, he kind of screwed it up. But this is very much about that and his relationship with a DEA agent named Kiki Camarena, who's played by Michael Pena.
Right. Let's take a look at the Narcos clip.
Empiecen.
Por el jefe, jefes.
Aquí, ando construyendo un imperio.
Very good. Álex and Carlos, because unfortunately we're running out of time, we're going to jump to the Pier. So tell us about this new project that you have.
Bueno, después de La Casa de Papel, realmente, que era una serie muy complicada, muy compleja y tremendamente difícil de hacer cada plano, decidimos hacer algo absolutamente diferente, sencillo, solo con sentimientos, con emociones. Las anteriores series estaban metidas claustrofóbicamente en lugares como una prisión o como un secuestro, y ahora salíamos al aire libre para contar de nuevo una historia que también es ambigua moralmente, y donde alguien que es un señor que tiene una doble vida podría ser prejuzgado, y sin embargo vamos a colocar el foco moral en otro lugar, y el público se va a dar cuenta de que hay otra forma de ver eso.
Yes, we were coming from Heist, which was a very complex series. The whole series was shot in interiors, and it was very claustrophobic. So we decided to go into the open with the new series, with the Pier. So it's a more open series, more emotional series. It's the story of a man who has a double life, and we try to understand all those emotions, all he's feeling at the time. And that's our trip now.
All right. Let's see the clip of the Pier, please.
¿Vives aquí?
Tengo todo esto delante para mí solita. Esta es la habitación más bonita de mi casa. ¿Te gusta?
Hay un cadáver y creemos que puede ser su esposo.
Tiene que ser un error si mi marido está en Frankfurt.
Señora Leiva, su marido se ha suicidado.
¿No le parece raro que alguien planifique un viaje y me mande flores y luego se mate?
¿Qué haces? Estoy grabando.
Tengo que hablar con ella. ¿Qué vas a decirle? Que esta mierda es tan grande que ni siquiera soy capaz de llorar la muerte de la persona que más me importaba. ¿Estás bien?
Se ha muerto el amor de mi vida.
Es que no lo entiendo, solo tengo preguntas.
Esto sería algo así, ¿vale? 2 círculos. Este trozo de en medio es lo que compartes con una persona. Pero está todo este espacio de aquí, que este espacio está libre para vivir, para viajar, para compartir con otras personas. Y este espacio es tuyo.
El problema es que necesito entenderlo. ¿Quién era mi marido? ¿Un follador compulsivo?
Lo que pasa por la cabeza de otros siempre es un enigma, ¿sabes? Aunque sea tu marido, duerme contigo en la misma cama todas las noches.
Mira su cara, está enamorado. Pero esta foto es de 2 semanas más tarde conmigo. Martina, soy Verónica.
¿Por qué lo hace?
Porque necesito respuestas y usted no me las da.
Well, I wish we had another hour to continue talking, but unfortunately our time is coming to a close. And before we end, I'd like to invite Lorene to join me back on stage. Honestly, the world is a complex place. You have contributed so much to the television genre, but I think it's a huge gift, the gift of entertainment that you give us. So in recognition of all of this, we would like to give you a Content Trendsetter Award.
Of the golden age of content, and TV, I think we've seen it right here. So thank you so much. So now start with Lorenzo Mieli.
Thank you.
Can you just... Eric?
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Álex Pina.
And the whole group together now? Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Grazie mille. Muchas gracias.